You're listening to In My Humble Opinion with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jam.
And our guest for this next segment, Mr. Daniel Fairley II. How you doing, brother, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Blessed and highly favored.
hey, that's what we're on here on a good Sunday afternoon.
Wait a minute, y'all. Wait a minute. X just said talk is cheap, blah, 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 blah. And he said I'm blessed and highly favored. And I don't know if they go together. You know what I'm saying?
You gotta give you somebody that can do both.
He just finished praising the Lord to Rough Riders.
So yeah, he the packing pastor.
Right.
Oh man, that's awesome.
That is funny.
Like that's kind of what we celebrating, right? Like
that's
that whole parallel of being that contrast of being human, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So without further ado, Miss Max, as we said, Daniel wears many hats in the community, and so this discussion is going to go many ways. You don't want to miss it. Tell a friend. So Daniel, to start it off, man, bring the folks up to speed on your titles, your positions here in the city, and the resources that those orgs offer.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Daniel Fairley II. I'm a youth opportunity coordinator focused on Black male achievement. I also am president of the 100 Black Men. I serve on a couple different boards, such as Loaves and Fishes, and helping out the different community foundations, such as like CNE. I've honestly been here since 2016 and started working at UVA, but really trying to get more connected with the community, which is how I met Wes and Dr. Harrison, a couple other people that got me involved in the 100. When that just kind of set me off of getting community connected and really working with the city and seeing just how valuable the kids are that we have in this community. So that's kind of like my initial origin story. I've been here, just for a couple of years, but I've seen a lot happen. It's kind of serendipitous that my job actually started in December of 2017. So you have, August of 2017, and then a couple months later, I start my job as a Black male achievement coordinator, youth opportunity coordinator, focused on Black male achievement.
Right.
All of that really, started out just right after we had a really big kind of slap in the face as far as people that were unaware of racial injustice in our community, being able to say, oh, this is what you all been talking about.
Unaware.
How does your beginnings here in Charlottesville working with Black male achievement, how does that mindset or that particular group of people, how has that transitioned from then and now? Because I'm certain you see probably a stronger sense of self and sense of, I know what I will and won't accept.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that it's been pretty amazing because I've been through, just in the past 4 or 5 years with my jobs, specifically focusing on racial injustice. You're coming on the heels of, riots that happened inside of our city where #1 trending topic on Twitter, like the world knows this small town in Virginia, to then going into now racial reckoning and having incredible people such as Zion O'Brien and other youth leaders that are in our community that are really making sure that we're staying accountable, right, to the values that we've portrayed to them. I think that it's been really incredible to see the way that they've taken this, they as in the youth, have taken this to heart, and they've made sure that we are really, saying what we mean and mean what we say. When we say that Black Lives Matter, not just posting a hashtag or a black square, but making sure that you are hiring Black people, making sure that you're supporting them when they're there, making sure that you're looking in your practices and seeing what are the ways in which you've been steeped in white supremacy. Like there are complex questions that the kids are starting to ask us, and we need to start having answers.
Yeah. Now, Daniel, like I said at the beginning, you wear a lot of hats, and you're very, and you're very involved. And, for better or for worse, there's always a dedicated few, right? And this being a small town, so, sometimes I'm sure you get called on a lot. You'd be like, I'm only one person, right? But
I know it.
But, if you were to paint a picture, if you sort of had that tree with the branches, how does all of this work coincide? Because I get a lot of what you do is about Black male achievement in many facets. But how would you sort of describe sort of the branches, to the root of what you do?
Absolutely. For me, the idea of Black male achievement and the idea of having a job, paid for by the city that focuses on Black men is all around targeted universalism, right? So targeted universalism is the idea that you focus in on the very people that have been most harmed by the systems that we've had. People that are so incredibly just beaten down by the systems that have been in place. You help out those people, and then it changes the rest of the tide for the rest of the people that are involved, right? So if you, a good example of this is curb cuts. I don't know if any of you all know exactly what they're called, but basically those are the things that, like, when you're going into a grocery store, it's like the lip on the grocery store is actually like level to the road, right? There's not like a 90-degree turn. So curb cuts actually started because a group of veterans that needed spaces and wanted to access, different places inside of the grocery stores or inside of bookstores or whatever. They needed spaces to go where they could use wheelchairs, they could use other forms to get back onto the curb, as opposed to always staying in the road or staying on the sidewalk and having to kind of go up on that 90-degree angle. When they created the curb cuts for those disabled veterans, that then created opportunities for people that are pregnant, for people that are using grocery carts, people that are using strollers, people that may just have, crutches for a couple of weeks, right? That one act of focusing on the most marginalized people actually helped to impact the rest of the way that we now have. Curb cuts are universal and everyone uses them. And you have that space, right, where you're able to focus on the marginalized people and that influencing and impacting everyone else. So I see that my role in focusing on some of the most marginalized people inside of our community, and this is statistically marginalized. I mean, you're thinking about educational deficits, you're thinking about housing and income. In our community, Black men fall flat and they fall last in just about every statistic. And I think that obviously is systemic, that obviously there's been years and years of oppression that have happened to create that. And so my work is trying to undo and redress that inequity to then allow for more opportunities for everyone eventually, right? I mean, that's kind of like the initial idea is creating the opportunities.
Okay.
Hey, so this is A.A. Ron. Appreciate your work. So, so even the term Black male achievement, one of the things that, because I do a podcast with a therapist and it's specifically based on Black men. And one of the issues that we have to be honest with is that not much, if we're very honest, is expected from Black men. Now, I don't know, some people but let's be very, very real. If somebody turned on the media right now, if somebody turned on the radio, you went to YouTube, you go to IG, whatever, the overwhelming majority of content that you would see would be anti-silly, dumb Black male. Now, you guys might argue and say that that's not true, but I would say it's not a person that someone would strive to be like immediately. I'm not talking about a pastor. I'm talking about what people see every day. If an alien came onto this planet and said, okay, that's a Black male, I don't want to be that. So my question is that one of the reasons that I think that is because white supremacy has affected us and anti-Blackness has affected us tremendously. But one of the main issues is that we as Black people, mothers, fathers, husbands, aunts, uncles, whatever, we have taken on a lot of those ideologies and applied them to our own children, applied them to our husbands, applied them to our nephews. What can we do specifically, or in your work, how do our own anti-Black thoughts encourage these negative thoughts about Black male achievement?
Wow, I mean, that's incredible. You sound like me. You sound like we need to get a conversation. Honestly, like I love this idea because I think it really gets to some of the more complex questions, right? Because it's almost easier to answer or to blame kind of, the ideas of just, Black men are downtrodden, they're beaten up by society. We just kind of have to throw our hands up and say, oh, well, it's hard to be a Black man, it sucks, right? But what we really need to be thinking about is like, yes, there are systemic issues. Yes, there are systemic things that are coming and facing Black men. We also need to be thinking about what are ways in which we can build up our Black men, right? So what I'm looking at, what I try to do, both with the documentaries that I produced with Clarence Green and with Lighthouse Studios, both with the podcast that I have now focused on Black men and mental health, I try to provide those Black male role models and try to fill in that space that that isn't there, right? When they're looking on IG and they're not seeing themselves in a positive light, I want to try to create the space where they can see that. I want to try to introduce young Black men, young Black scholars into people, and kind of what we have in the 100 Black Men is what they see is what they'll be, right? So I want to introduce them to people that they can look at and say, that's who I want to be when I grow up. That's the type of person that I want to be. That's the influence or the family that I want to be a part of. And I think that it's up to us to really, to build up our young Black men, to have high expectations of them, right? In M-Cubed, we expect them to read a book a week, right? And these are chapter books that are really big. And I think that we need to continue to have those expectations that are higher, as opposed to lowering the expectations that we have for them, because we know that it's hard, right? We know it's hard and it's going to be okay. But saying you have to work twice as hard is not some type of, you're never going to get there. It's saying we believe in you, right? It's saying we want you to work harder. We know that it's hard out there, but I believe that you can do it. And so those are the things that I think that's the narrative change that we need to face, is believing and pushing deeper into the resilience that we have as Black men and the complexity that comes with that.
Yeah, I got something for you. You know how much I think of, you're one of the most intelligent people I've come across since I've been in the Charlottesville region.
Wow. Thank you.
You are, you're very well accomplished. But there's only one thing.
You up, Daniel.
Nah, he know me.
Right, exactly.
He know me. But there's only one issue I have. Like when we first started talking, we was laughing and joking, talking about the X part, where we need both people. You know what I'm saying? But in our Black society, when it comes to Black excellence, and we've even had this conversation amongst ourselves, once we start getting to a certain level or certain money or certain status, we feel that we have to be more polished, or we have to look more white in order to be accepted, the way we dress. Now, for lack of a better term, when it comes to organizations as high profile as like the 100 Black Men of Central Virginia, they dress perfectly. They strive for Black excellence at all times. Where does that fit in with the person that looks like X or looks like me, who's highly intelligent, but I do got Brooks Brothers suits, but at the same time I wear a set of Timbs, you know what I'm saying? And wear them the way that Black men wear their Timbs, not laced all the way to the top. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Still got a tag on.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah. So my issue is that when I hear somebody who I highly respect as yourself say that it's okay to push yourself and strive for the best. What if the best that I'm striving for is to be myself and not look like them? Then what? Are you still, as a Black man, going to invite me to the table to sit next to you when you look like you came out of Brooks Brothers and I look like I came out of DTLR? We both got the same mind, but the perception of how they're going to view us, they might not give us the money. And I think that's what has happened to organizations like the NAACP. I think that's what happened to every Black organization that we've had, is that we don't fund it anymore, so we got to go to other entities to get the money. And then in the boardrooms behind the doors, that's who controls us and tells us what we need to look like to get a certain place, unless we're making jokes like Martin, dressing up like women, like Tyler Perry. They do certain things, and we try to stay away from that with good organizations, but at the same time, that's their way to make it. So if we can accept that, we should be able to accept that I don't want to wear that suit. I want to wear dreads. I don't want to have to talk 15-syllable words, and I still be looked upon as somebody who is bringing value to our community. And I don't think that we do that.
Wow, man, I'm excited for this talk. So y'all have some great questions, because honestly, that is something that I think about just about every day and just about every meeting that I'm in. Is I think about my own perception. What do I look like? How do I speak? Are they going to respect me? I'm also one of the youngest people in just about every meeting that I have. I always look around and I try to see. I'm 29 years old. Just about every meeting that I have, I'm the youngest person that's in there, right? So I know that there are other extra layers that come with being a young Black man, and what that means inside of a boardroom, what that means when I'm talking to CEOs, superintendents, etc. What you're talking about is the dismantling of white supremacy, right? You're talking about the dismantling of this idea that there's only one way to be excellent. There's only one way to look good, to dress well, to speak eloquently. Like, you're saying that there's Like, we have to go beyond that. And I absolutely agree. And I know, and I think about this all the time because I just started getting into golf and thinking about different ways in which like that ultra white sport has disenfranchised and has really, I mean, honestly, there was nothing but black caddies for the longest time. And so knowing that there are still places that don't accept black people, that are golf courses and country clubs. So I think about that, and I say to myself every time, like, I am here to nudge the doors, right? I'm here to bust open and to pull some elbows and to move it just a little bit more. So that way the kids that are working behind me, the kids that I know are intelligent, that like to wear do-rags, that I know are intelligent, that, dress, I say a certain way, but we all know what we're talking about. They dress in the way that you may see DMX, or you may see someone else, and you may think, oh, they're not intelligent, right? But you're taking that intelligence and you're linking it to whiteness. You're taking their prestige, their the way that they speak, the way that they think, and you're linking it to whiteness. And I think that like there are compromises that come into play with that. I mean, it's something that I've seen and I've experienced, and I've tried to figure out, where do I compromise? And like, is this worth it? Is this piece that I am shielding of myself? Is this joke that I'm laughing at that I don't really think is all that funny, or that it is semi-is like, are those things worth it? And are those things really advancing the culture and the experiences that I want to have for the young people that I work with? And so I think it's a balance, and I think sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong. But I want to say that like you keep pushing and you keep being your authentic self, right? And I think that like as we inject more black people into the boardroom, inject more black people into these spaces, right? Because I know that there's a lot of times where, right, exactly. There's a lot of times where I have to be that quote unquote safe black man, right? That they can say, oh, I can laugh with him, I can joke with him, he has a smile, whatever, right? And I think that like that, like, I know that I have those abilities, and I know that I'm going to challenge them in ways that I've learned from going to white universities, from hanging out with white people, from talking to older white men and picking their brains and being able to go on hikes with them, because that's what's going to change their mind, is like that relationship that I'm building with them. And I think that if I have in my mind that my goal in this relationship is to help change minds, is to help make it easier for the people that are coming behind me, just like how they would have not asked for me if there had not been a Quentin Harrell, if there had not been a Wes Bellamy, a so on and so forth, that put me in place with them. I know that I'm doing the same for the kids that are coming behind me.
Can I just add one thing real quick to what he said? So I'm sorry, Max, and this is something Razor had said, but as black men, we have to be very clear. Blue collar guys ain't nothing without white collar guys, and white collar guys ain't nothing without blue collar guys. And so many times that message gets messed up because we tap into some of these things where it's like, okay, the construction guy, I'm in the office, I might be the guy doing the engineering. But guess what? You got to go out and build it, Razor. We need each other. The reason why I bring that up is because sometimes there is a disdain from each other as men about who does what. It doesn't matter how it gets done. We all have to build together. Another thing I just want to share specifically for black men, if you're listening, because I do a lot of work, I try to do a lot of work in this area, and I'm stealing this directly from Kevin Samuels. We have to be very, very long term, because your earning your highest earning potential as a black male is between like 40 and 55. People don't even think about that. But what are we always thinking about? A quick buck, a quick bag, a quick buck. What he's talking about,
that's why the prison's full,
is achievement. Take your time, build your resume, build your skills, become a professional, entrepreneur. It's going to happen. But it's not a quick overnight success. And we need men like him that are talking to people that are 16, 17 years old, that it might get a kid to be like, you know what? I got to build my skills. I got to build my resume. And I'm also putting that out there for the ladies too, because you want, I'm going to put it out there. I got to add this. You want a bag real fast. That bag ain't coming early. That bag comes later.
Yeah. Now, Aaron, you know what that makes me think about
what?
too? So everything y'all just said, feeds into the question that I had for him, and the comment is that, because this goes into the realm of bringing it home of how we've seen an increase in violence, they say. how we've talked about because of COVID,
100%.
you know, COVID and all we've gone through, how your personal health is, you know, is on front stage and is more important than ever, maybe. And, you know, so black men's health at that, right? So, like, so what I'm hearing, Daniel, is like within that, those are sort of the two sides I'm hearing. Like, you got the side where it's saying therapy would help, right? And like the black male mental health is something that I know you're big in. So what is your comment on that? But on the flip side, you know, kind of like Mobile Razor was saying, you have like people who are in the trenches and have a direct need. They don't just need role models. They need people who's going to get in there and get them resources. You know what I mean? Like, so I kind of see that as both. It's like, yeah, therapy would help, but I can go to therapy and then still go home and have no food, have no money. You follow? Like, so how do you bridge that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's going and seeing people as holistic, right? People like, and knowing that the black family and the black community, we're here as a village, right? I would not be here had it not been for people that are looking out for me. I wouldn't have come on this show had it not been me knowing you, Charles, and knowing Razor, and like, you know what I mean? Like, those are the things in which we're looking out for each other. And so that's why I sit on boards such as like Loaves and Fishes Food Pantry, right? Because I know that a lot of the kids that I'm working with don't have food, or they're coming home to empty spaces. And if there's a space like Loaves and Fishes where all you need is honestly the transportation to get there, or if you have a social worker that can get there for you, like they'll get you a month's worth of groceries, over 150 pounds of groceries for free, right? So like I need to be able to know that resource and know it inside and out, and also advocate when I'm there. But when we're saying stuff like, oh man, where are the people? Oh, they don't want to come. Okay, is there a way we can talk to Kat about getting transportation that's going to be on the bus line to get here, right? We're working on the systemic level to make sure that there are people that are helped, and making sure that their basic needs are met, because we can't expect them to thrive and do all these amazing achievements and be the best SOL scores and all this other stuff if they don't have food, if they don't have secure housing, if they don't have a space where they feel safe when they come home, right? All the shootings that have been happening inside the city, like they have all these things that your kids that are not feeling really just settled and registered, right, as human beings. And so I think that there's like those aspects where I try to look at it holistically. I try to really address more the holistic concerns, not just the schoolwork, but also feeling about like what does it look like when you go home? How many times have you moved this school year? Right. There are people that I've seen that there's so many kids that they can hop from one place to another 3-4 times, go to different schools, get into Stab, then go back to Buford, then go over to Jack Jewett. Like, and that's just one family that I'm talking about. Right. Yeah. So I think that it's understanding that there's a need for kind of the settling, the stability, right, that comes with a good home, that comes with families that have jobs, but also understanding and not discounting like the black male therapists that we have, such as our barbers, right? Like people that we see on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. There's a community that comes with that comes with people that are able to share your deepest and most intimate parts of yourself, and you'll be able to talk about things that are really bothering you, right? Talk about your experiences. I used to think, I talked about going to University of Vermont for grad school. Like when I was up there, I realized I needed basketball more than any other time in my life, because it became a meditative state for me. It became a state where I was able to relax, get some exercise, and honestly only think about the next pass, the next dribble, the next shot. And that space where I was able to turn off my phone, turn off my engagement with the outside world, and just focus in on one thing, like that's meditation. That's what that is. So I think we need to stop thinking about these different spaces as incongruent with each other, right? I see a therapist and I play basketball, right? Yep. There are things that I need both of, and those are culturally specific, as well as, like competent and different types of people. My therapist is a licensed social worker, right? There's things that I need that are specific to the work that she does.
Thank you for that.
How do your guys respond to the need for mental health help? Like, I know there's such a stigma attached to that, and especially when you're young, when you're young, that's not the first thing that people are ready to admit to, much less what they're dealing with behind closed doors, so to speak. So are they more apt to say, I need that help, or, do they still kind of hide from that?
I mean, I find myself and you do this with kids in a variety of different ways, but kind of putting the cheese on the broccoli, right? You're kind of starting to figure out ways to make things that they may assume are inappetizing,
so you lie
and
to
try
them.
to create. Yeah, I mean, like,
I'm just playing. I'm
massage
playing.
it, you know, yeah. You make it more appetizing. You massage it. You make sure that they feel like they're not. Because I mean, like, honestly, as men, and this is part of the society that we need to break down, is like, we're not good at face-to-face, one-on-one, like I'm staring you in the eye and sharing my deepest, darkest secrets, right? A lot of things that the men that I work with, things that they love to do are like parallel play, right? The idea that I can sit next to you and go fishing and we can have a real deep conversation. But if we had those same exact scenario, but I'm sitting here eating some chips, looking in your face, like, you're not going to talk. And so knowing that there's different ways to address these situations, right? You're addressing it through parallel play. You're addressing it through, honestly, like, there was a kid that came in last year or 2 years ago during our summer internship program, and he was hot. I mean, he was about 5 minutes late, and I was always telling my kids, you know, like, you got to be here on time. This is a job. You got to be serious. But he was hot. He came in late. He was sweaty. And he was just mad. He'd come throw his books down on the table. I was like, all right, so we're gonna take a pause right here because you're not entering my space like that, right? Like, you're not, this is not how this is gonna go. So I'm gonna have the kids, I'm gonna have the other kids that are with me. Y'all go ahead. We're reading Between the World and Me. Y'all go through the next chapter. Y'all talk about it. I'm gonna go ahead and take Jamal here on a walk, right? We're gonna take a walk around the building and figure out what's going on. And during that time, again, that space where I was able to just open the space up and say, what's going on, right? I'm not punishing him. I know that he was late. I know that it's the third time that he had been late and he was already mad at himself for that. I'm saying, what's going on? And like, how did you get to this space? And I see that you're really upset. Like, tell me what's up. And he was able to open to me about, his mom was supposed to be driving him, but she had to go drive his brother somewhere else. He didn't find that out until about 10 minutes before he had to leave. He lives 15 minutes across town. When he was walking, someone was following him and badgering him with questions, saying that he was harassing them. And like, all this stuff had happened in between the last 15 minutes and him getting to a job that he knew that he was always going to be in trouble for being late, because he knew that those are my rules. Those are my expectations. And so, like, taking that moment to not just say, all right, you know what, you're having a bad day, get out, like, you're not getting paid today. I took the moment to say, you know what, let's take a walk. Let's go ahead and walk side by side, look ahead, and just figure out what's going on. And he was able to open up like he never did before. And there were other things where he was like, I was feeling like I wasn't getting the same amount of time during the shooting that we were doing. I was always the last person to pick on the shooting. Things that weren't really related to what we were doing that day, but it was clear that he had been building that up, and this was coming out during our talk. And so we started adjusting the way that we talked to each other, started adjusting the way that we interacted as a group, and giving more people the opportunity to pick first. And like, those are the times in which he was able to say, oh, I'm opening up and I can say, like, you know, this is what's been bothering me, and I'd never talked about it before.
That comes from having people that look like you in your spaces. That's one reason I like black educators.
And also parents, parallel play. That gym right there, you could take that home, parallel play, and that's like go fishing, shoot a couple of hoops. Sometimes it's not the environment. It's just got to be the activity got to change a little bit.
But sometimes it is an environment, because parallel play is in the prison system with the toilets too, so that ain't going to work. You ain't going to be able to talk to the people.
But, and you know what? You don't entirely, the individual doesn't, I'm not sold out to the belief that an individual has to look like you in order to get those same type of results, right? If we have people in our school systems or what have you that are just in tune with their students, that care about how they're really doing other than what they learn, you know, on the pages of a book, then, you know, you may get some of those same results. Not always, but, you know, the other thing
that's a hard one for me to agree with my wife. That's a hard one, Max, for me to agree with, because I know where you grew up at, and you were the minority.
So do you feel like you never had a teacher in the Orange County school system who did not look like you, that was able to connect with you and help you through anything, whether it's believing in yourself that you could pass a test, whether it's making sure that you stayed on task with something? You never had anyone that didn't look like you that you ever connected with in that school system.
Never,
not make sure you were successful.
Never, not one, especially if it went to being a black issue. They could never relate. They could never ever relate.
And
I had teachers that loved me and coaches that would take me home, give me anything in the world. But if it went to a situation that it was a black issue, there's nothing that I could get more from the drunk that was telling me what not to do about black issues than I could from the most heart-intended teacher that was not black.
Well, I understand. Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's where we are in society.
You were dealing with a black issue.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's where the problems come in for our children. We can fix everything else, but what are we fighting about? What was the sum of hate about? What is it that we're talking about the police pulling us over and profiling? There's no good intention that can help you with that. So I was with you, but I know firsthand that if it goes to a race issue, there's nothing that they can do. At worst, their good intent seems like they're pacifying.
Yeah, I agree with that. But again, like I said, it's not a blanket situation, because I agree if it was a race issue. However, growing up in the area that I grew up in, there were some teachers that made sure that whatever, I was working on or doing, I did my very best at it and was successful. But I completely understand when it comes to race.
I understand yours too, though.
Type of conversation.
Yeah.
But Daniel, I had a separate question for you. Thinking about what Aaron had mentioned earlier about there just not being much expected out of the black male. And Aaron, I did catch your episode on your podcast talking about the trauma that our young black youth deal with, being made to be adults before they're ready. Those type of pressures putting on them. And just those, whether it's the parents doing it to them, whether it's, people referring to them as men when they're kids, whether it's what the world expects out of them or what have you. But I'm tying that into the fact that I'm raising 4 black boys right now. And I'm trying to instill that, Drazer and I are trying to instill that black male achievement mindset now. And it's hard to instill that without some degree of trauma because of how the world's going to view them, how they have to be prepared to function in the world, and without giving them a realization of the anti-blackness that exists outside of our doors. That's very difficult to separate the two. And so I wondered if your kids also view your preparation for achievement in that way, and how they, if so, how they respond to that, and whether or not you kind of really found the balance of being able to do that, prepare without trauma. I don't know.
Right. I mean, I think that it's so hard because I try to again, like when I'm entering into those really white spaces and I know that there are kids that wouldn't be accepted there, I try to kind of suck up and almost be that shield before they get to the kids, right? There were things that we were talking to a group of people that are trying to do some volunteer activities with some kids, and they were like, we just don't know why, we don't have kids of color that are doing this, and we just wish that we could get more kids involved, and we bring them here, and they just stop showing up to the bus to come and do this activity. And we were like, okay, so, myself and Clarence Green were just kind of talking to them and thinking through some things. And we're like, okay, well then what kind of snacks do you have? And they were like, what do you mean snacks? And I was like, what, you don't have snacks? These are kids. There is not a time during the day where a kid doesn't need snacks, whether they're food insecure or not. You need to be thinking about these things, and you can't just assume that these kids are going to be coming to you with full bellies or are going to be able to feel comfortable enough to ask for snacks, right? There are things that people who are in wealthy and people that are in spaces, they just don't understand, or they're not prepared in order to really accept kids. And so I think that part of the thing that I do is I try to have those initial meetings, have those upper level systemic meetings where I'm talking through and figuring out what are some of the issues that I could potentially see my kids facing before they go into those spaces. And then I honestly, when I think about the ways of trying to understand their experiences, because even though I'm 29, there are kids that I work with today that have told me, I don't think racism is real. I don't think that, I've never experienced it before. There's been things like that where I've had to kind of bite my tongue and just say, you know what, that's your experience. Like that's what you're going through. That's how you see the world. Like I want to believe that's true. I want to believe that we're getting towards more of a not post-racial, but like more towards a society where people are truly treated equitably and truly treated with what they need. I know in my heart that we're not there yet though. And so like, I struggle with that because I'm not a parent. And so I don't know. I think honestly, I mean, for me, like it's easy because it's not my decision, right? It's not my decision to kind of like pop that bubble or to make that for the kids that I work with. But I want to hear from them and their experiences and take that to be truth, right? Take that to say, okay, you feel like your white friends don't treat you any differently, but you know, there was experiences that we all experienced together. Remember that time that we were playing basketball and the police showed up? Like, why do you think they did that? Right? Like, remember that time that we were doing this and this happened and that one team, you know, didn't want to play with us or whatever. Like, so I try to like understand them and take their truth for what it is, while also asking, you know, some of the questions for them to think about, okay, what is your experience and what are some ways in which this may look different to you than what it did before, right? This may look different after hearing or opening your eyes to some things. So I think it's a hard question to ask because you want to give them the truth and you want to make sure that they are prepared for the world. And I was listening to a book called The Talk and just kind of talking about that. But I think that like it's something that I struggle with, and I want to try to find a good way for us to integrate these conversations and allow for our kids to both be prepared without taking away their youth. You have to, right? It's a hard barrier. It's a hard space.
Charles, you have to like that's one of those things. I don't believe in being reactive before being proactive, because the damage that can come from realizing that somebody looks at you inadequately and attach that N-word to it is a hard thing to get somebody past. So I'm not one of those ones that I would rather look at my kids and tell them, look, this is how he looks at you and this is what this means, and watch that anger come in them and let me calm it down in my face than for them to come through the door and you say, what's wrong? And they don't know how to process it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And that's
yeah, like the downtown story you shared.
Yeah. That was, you know what I'm saying? And the only reason I was able to talk about the downtown story that happened down there was because my wife has helped me evolve in the way that I fight. You know what I'm saying? Because my thing was violence was an answer. You know, that's the way I knew violence is the answer. But she explained to me when we first got together, I know to you that this may look different, but I fight different. You know what I'm saying? So and being able to go through a situation where you're dealing with race, where you have to use your mind and the properties of God, is much harder than just reacting in a physical way or cussing somebody out or putting your hands on somebody. You know what I'm saying? So I had to learn that, because I looked at that as weakness at one time. So now I'm a advocate for being proactive and telling them what the world really is.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Mr. Fairley, thank you as always, sir. It's been too long.
Absolutely.
You know, you got to come back and join us sooner. And you know, anything you have going on that needs to be shared with the community, you know, this is a platform that you can do such. Thank you, sir. Now, the folks to follow up on your work, they have youth that want to get involved, young men, whatever the case may be. You got a lot of ways to contact you, brother. So what's the best one?
Yeah, so I'd say, I mean, there's definitely a lot of ways. If you want to look at our How You podcast, which is focus on Black men and mental health and kind of their experiences, you can just type in BMA Seville. That's B as in black, M as in male, A as achievement, Seville. And that you type that into YouTube, you'll find our page. You'll be able to get through all the interviews. We've had 4 so far with Antoine Brinson, Dr. Webb, Cameron Webb, as well as Will Jones, Mac McClellan, incredible thought leaders and Black men in our community. So you have that. Definitely check out the podcast. Let us know what you think. And then that's the same handle for everything, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of it's BMA Seville. Even BMA Seville at charlottesville.org. I'm sorry, charlottesville.gov now. That'll reach us, and I'll be able to respond to you. You have people that have questions. Again, my name's Daniel Fairley. You can find me just anywhere. I mean, just anywhere you want to look it up. President of 100 Black Men. Like, there's ways to find me. So that's definitely like just Google you'll get me. And I'm always happy to respond. Always happy to figure out ways we can help to influence and empower our young men.
Good stuff, sir. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for joining us.
Continue.
Yeah,
blessings.
thank you all.
I appreciate you, man. Keep on doing that great work.
Absolutely.
All right, take care.
Thank you. Appreciate it.